Hey, what's up guys, it's Kelly, and today's Top 5 Wednesday topic is the top 5 books that you wish you'd read as a teenager, which I thought was a really cool topic, but I had a lot of trouble with it. I was looking at my shelves and I couldn't really see anything that I'd read just in the last couple of years that I wish I'd read as a teenager, so I decided to change it up a bit, which you're not supposed to do, but YOLO, and share with you the top 5 books that I think teenagers should read, because that was another video topic that I was thinking of doing soon anyway, so the timing just worked out for me. So some of these I did read as a teenager and they were really formative books for me and really important books for me, and to this day are still some of my favourite books. And others are books that I've read more recently that I don't necessarily wish that I'd read as a teenager, but just I do think have important lessons that are good for teenagers. So yeah, just nothing on this list really applied, you know? So yeah, without further ado, here are the top 5 books that I think all, or at least most, teenagers should read. First up is We Are Young by Kat Clark, which admittedly I didn't love. I would have talked about this in my July wrap-up, I think, and I think I only gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because it's a contemporary. I don't read a lot of contemporary, it's not really my scene. Well, I don't read a lot of YA contemporary. That being said though, this book does deal with suicide, it deals a lot with depression, it deals with that overwhelming feeling of being a teenager and feeling so much pressure on you to succeed and be perfect and be the perfect child and do everything exactly the way that everyone expects you to do, even if that's not necessarily what you want and what makes you happy. So I think that this is such an important book for teenagers to read. It's hard being a teenager, and the people that are putting that pressure on you, they don't always realise what it's doing to you. So I think it's important for teenagers to realise that sometimes you don't have to live up to other people's expectations. It is so much more important that you're happy, that you're healthy physically and mentally. So I think that a lot of teenagers could benefit from reading this book, because I've just seen too many people be miserable and have poor mental health, myself included, because just coming from everywhere around them, there was just too much pressure on them to be a certain way or do a certain thing, and this book really brings to light in a very harsh way, in a very ugly way, the consequences that that can have. And I think it would be a wake-up call for a lot of teenagers that you just can't keep living your life for someone else, and it's time to take your life into your own hands and make your own decisions, and make decisions because they make you happy. Then Yes Please by Amy Poehler is really a book that I think everyone should read. I think it's so great, it's so entertaining, but specifically because she makes no apologies for who she is. She is very candid about her past, about her present, she's very candid about mistakes that she's made in her life, and she doesn't apologise for them because, you know, all of these millions of strangers that are reading her book, she doesn't owe them anything. She doesn't have to account for her behaviour to them. The only person who needs to be comfortable with her behaviour, with her past, is herself. And I think that's a really important lesson for teenagers to learn. Obviously, yes, to some extent your actions affect the people around you, and there are going to be times in your life when you need to hold yourself accountable to other people. But for the most part, the decisions you make that influence yourself and yourself only, you are the only person that you should have to answer to for those decisions. Again, you know, do what makes you happy, and if you make a mistake along the way, if the only person you hurt is yourself, you shouldn't have to apologise to anyone else for that. Something that I really took away from this book was apologise to other people when you hurt them, but anything you do that only affects you, that possibly only hurts you, you don't owe anyone else anything for making those decisions. It is completely on you that you made those decisions, and you own them, whether they ended well or whether they ended badly. If they ended well, you can say a massive screw you to everyone who thought it was a bad idea, and if they ended badly, then you learn from it and you grow from it, and you still owe no one anything. I'm sure that if you're a long-time viewer of this channel and you've ever watched me talking about my favourite books, you will not be surprised by the fact that this book is on the list, but The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. This is quite possibly my all-time favourite book, and the reason that it has remained my favourite book for the, 7 years since I read this, is just because I was at a place in my life where I needed it. I needed this book, I needed everything that this book contains, and I needed Holden. I needed a character like that who, in so many ways, was so like me. I needed to see a character that was completely kind of isolated, and I know a lot of people who have read this book and hated this book, and I know exactly why. It's because they have no idea what it's like to be an outsider. Most of the people I know that have hated this book, actually almost all of the people I know that have hated this book, with the exception of literally like 1 or 2, it's because they were cool and popular and everyone liked them and they were really happy with that, and they had the perfect life. You know, they had good home lives, they had super happy school lives. They had no idea what it was like to be shunned socially, or to not have friends, or to have friends that didn't really accept you for the way that you were. So I feel like any teenager who's ever felt isolated or alone, or like they don't fit in with their surroundings, which is most teenagers, could really benefit from reading this book. It is about an outsider. It is about someone who has no idea of his place in the world, and he wants to find it, but he has no idea how. So he just kind of wanders around and does his thing, and most of the time it goes badly, but it's part of growing up and it's part of being a teenager. And this book, as much as it is something that almost makes you feel more isolated from the world around you, it also made me feel like I wasn't alone, and that's really important. I don't actually remember if I said at the beginning of this video that it was going to be a top 5. It's not going to be a top 5, because talking about The Catcher in the Rye always makes me think of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which is also right up there as being one of my all-time favourite books. Those two are in my top 3. And it's the same sort of thing where I also read that as a teenager, and it made me realise that although I was completely disconnected from the people around me, that one day I would find people that I would click with, and one day I would find this place where I felt at home and where I felt safe and where I felt like there were people who got me. And eventually, it might have been 3 or 4 or 5 years after I read that book, but eventually it happened for me, and I found the most amazing people who were everything that I'd ever been looking for in friends. I found these people that became my family and are just the greatest people in the world. Some of the actual experiences, like scene for scene from the book, are things that I've got to experience in the last few years with amazing people, and yeah. I'm basically just talking a lot about how great my friends are, but yes, Perks is definitely in some ways a difficult book to read when you are feeling isolated, because it might make you sad at first that you don't get that you're not getting that kind of acceptance at the moment. It also has a really good message of hold out for the people that deserve you. I mean, there's that line in the book, we accept the love we think we deserve. And it's so true, especially for teenagers. Most teenagers don't have a great deal of self-confidence, don't have a lot of self-worth or self-belief, and they take what they can get because they take what people give them, because they want to be accepted and they want to fit in. And most of the time, it's not people that deserve you. You know, if you're a cool, quirky, interesting individual, a lot of the time the people that come into your life are not going to deserve you. And if you don't have that sense of self-worth and you don't realise how important and how special you are, you'll take it and you'll be like, yeah, this is fine, when it's not fine. You should be holding out for people that deserve to have you around, and people that want to have you around, and people that accept all your quirks and all your strange things. And yeah, although it's difficult to not have friends for a while, or to have very few friends for a while, when you find those people that, like Charlie, when he finds that group of friends that are so great, he starts to realise how much more he's worth, because through the love of the people around him. Yeah. I've spoken a lot about a book that wasn't even on the original list. It's because I don't own it. I still can't believe that I don't own a copy of Perks, because like, as I said, it's one of my all-time favourite books, and I think, yeah, it holds a really good message of hope for teenagers, and hope for that you should just hold out, because the people that deserve you will eventually come into your life. I'm a firm believer that your vibe attracts your tribe. It rhymes for a reason. So, you know, hold out for the people that really deserve to have you in your life. Don't just take what you can get because you think you're not going to get anything better. And that's something people always say when they're talking about relationships, but I feel like it's even more true of friendships. And then, on the note of having friends that don't deserve you, Notes from a Teenage Underground, which is also one of my all-time favourite books. Pretty much all of my favourite books are books that I read between the ages of like 14 and 16, because those are really formative years for any teenager, but they were particularly formative years for me, and I was particularly miserable, particularly that year between like 15 and 16. Was just, yeah, really, high school was a miserable time for me, but that's a video for another day. So all these books that I read in this time have stayed with me for such a long time because they were so important to me. They were exactly what I needed at the time. Jem is the main character in this book. She's 17 and she thinks she has the greatest friends in the world. And Jem is insanely interesting. You know, she likes old movies and she likes great music and she wears really cool clothes that she DIYs herself, and she is so great and so full of life and so full of personality and so interesting. And then her friends are kind of like wet rags who have no personality, but they're like the hot ones and the cool ones. Jem has always kind of been like the third wheel to the friendship. Like, although she's there and she fits in and all that, she doesn't really fit in, and she often feels left out of the little schemes of her two best friends. Even though she's involved, she feels like she's just kind of along for the ride when they're the ones doing things. Jem decides that she wants to make a movie and she has all these great ideas, and her friends just kind of take over and ruin everything and ruin a budding relationship she has with this great guy. And over the course of the book she starts to realise that these friends of hers are not very good friends and they really don't deserve to have her in their life, but it's really difficult for her to let go of them because these are her friends. She's been friends with them for years, she's known them for years, she doesn't have other friends, so she lets go of them, like, what's she left with? And I feel like that's also such a difficult part of being a teenager. For the most part, I think a lot of teenagers are very blinded to how toxic their friendships can be because, you know, these are your friends and they'd never do anything to hurt you because they're your friends. And even if you do start to realise that they're toxic, you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? Because everyone else has their friends, and if I leave these people, then I'm not going to have any friends because these are my friends, this is my group, and no one else will take me. Because high school can be very, very cliquey. So it's a story about growing up and realising that, again, the people in your life don't always deserve you, and what do you do in that situation? How do you deal with friends that are just not good for you, and will your life be better or worse? Like, is it better to have no friends or to have bad friends? It asks all these questions and it answers the questions. So yeah, basically Notes from a Teenage Underground, which is a book that I constantly say is super underrated, is absolutely wonderful and all teenagers should read it. And lastly, on a slightly more uplifting note, because it's been a lot of your friends are probably shit and you should trash them. I'm sorry. As I said, I had a really bad high school experience, so my experience of being a teenager and books that teenagers need to read is it's better to be alone than have bad friends. Because that was a lesson that I desperately needed to learn and I didn't until much later. So we're ending on something a lot more uplifting and a lot happier, which is Afterworlds by Scott Westerfeld, which is not necessarily a book that you would associate with happiness and like goodness and positivity and optimism and all that kind of jazz. But this book it's told in like a dual perspective, so it alternates between chapters between a girl called Darcy who is writing a novel, and which is called Afterworlds, and the novel itself, you read like a chapter of Darcy's story and then a chapter of Afterworlds. And yeah, so the reason that I have this on the list is it wasn't actually a book that I loved that much. I think I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was good, I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. So Darcy, in her senior year of high school, I think, participated in this thing where you write a novel in a month, which is very clearly NaNoWriMo, although it's not referred to as NaNoWriMo, I don't think. And Darcy writes a book and somehow gets it published, and she moves to New York and she's living the dream. She's going to author parties and meeting some of her favourite authors. The reason I think that this is an important book for teenagers to read is obviously Darcy is a teenager, she's 18 or 19, and I know it's a book, I know it's a work of fiction, but Darcy is 18. Let's say she's 18. She's 18 and she is living her dream. She has written a book, she has published a book. A book with her name on it is going to be out on the shelves in the next year. And she's 18 and she is living her dream. Like, I think a lot of young people, myself included, are like, I'll achieve my dream one day, I'll write that novel one day, I'll pursue a music career one day. But you don't know if you're gonna get that one day, and also as soon as you start entering the real world and you have to go to university or get a job or whatever, you start to lose the time you have to do that, to pursue these dreams and to make a reality. B, you are leaving a gap where people younger and fresher than you can come up and take your place so that you don't have as many opportunities in the future. All you're doing is pushing back the date of achieving your dream. It's going to be just as difficult 5 years down the line. So just do them. You're never too young to follow your dreams. You're never too young to try really hard to do what it is that you want to do with your life. And yeah, I know it's a book. I know that Scott Westerfeld decided that there was this girl called Darcy and she managed to get published at 18. But you know what? If I'd finished my novel in high school, I might have also got published at 18. But I didn't. Now here I am, 21, slogging away. I could have a novel on the shelves, but I don't. I still have to get there. Your dreams are important, and you should follow them. And also, the younger you follow your dreams, the less likely you have to go into a real, boring, conventional life. Also though, apart from the fact that, you know, this book shows you're never too young to follow your dreams and all that, seeing a girl Darcy's age having her dream achieved made me feel so motivated to work. So whatever it is that your dream is, this book, or books like this, because I mean there are books like this, there are also books about people being signed up as superstar musicians at 17 or 18, whatever your thing is, find a book about that and someone making a success of that at a really young age and read that, and I promise you it'll motivate you so much to just get shit done. Just work hard and produce whatever it is that you have inside you that you want to produce, because, you know, if this fictional character can do it, why can't I do it? So that is all I have for you guys today. Those are the books that I think that all teenagers should read, or at least most teenagers should read. Teenagers who were like me should read, who are like I was. Yeah, I'm tired, guys. It's been a long life. Anyway, yes, so that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Let me know in the comments what books you think teenagers should read, or what you think of any of the books that I mentioned, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye!
No one hears them, only you. The voices never speak.